So her post says, "Hey, love, I'm working on a plan to transition off of social media for good. I don't believe I'll ever mature and be happy as long as I have it."
A person at her level in the music business already is going to lose money.
So I don't think this is risky at all. And I don't think she's going to lose money.
What's going down? It is the MEC Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. The gang's back. You can still get 3 months of free premium music distribution. The code has changed, though. It is MEC. You can still use the ad odds code. We just prefer that you use the MEC code. Go to tolost.com and type in MEC as the code, and you will get 3 free months of premium music distribution. Get your music on all the DSPs, all the platforms that you could ever want, and ones you didn't even know existed, because you never know which platform your music's going to work on. Instrumentals, producers hit me all the time. Can I put my instrumentals on streaming even if I'm selling them on BeatStars? Yeah, you own them. You can put your music out. And honestly, a lot of producers are licensing beats because there is an audience of artists listening to beats on the streaming platforms. And then there's an audience of people who just like instrumental music. So why not reach all of them? I should put my money where my mouth is, because I probably only have like 50 instrumentals on the platforms, if that. But I need to just go to Too Lost and use the code MEC and get all of them up. I can probably get a solid 100 up in 3 months. That's doable. Anyway, I got to be like them. Yo, hey, what's going down, Erinn? What's up, Dame? Share your wins. Let's see who's winning right now.
That was really random, but man, I'm back from the Game from the Gods tour. I'm still tired, but it was a success. I got to see Erinn in person again in Atlanta. I think it was just, because when I used to run the label, we would go on tour for like 2 months, and that was stressful. That was stressful too, but like, I was only on the road this time for 5 or 6 days, and it felt like 2 months. I think and it's probably because I was kind of responsible for everything, right? Just kind of like the logistics, and it's not like I don't have a team. Like, shout out to the marketing team at Too Lost: Brandon, Mel, Haley, Nyla, and then Ray has a team also. But ultimately, like, I was kind of responsible for this tour. So I think having that responsibility and the responsibility of like executing the event and then staying afterwards and chopping it up with everybody. And then the travel wasn't ideal, but it was a success. So we'll continue to roll it out to other cities in the new year. New York went really well. I'm trying to think of which was, I don't know which one. DC was the most entertaining event. It probably wasn't the most it was educational as well, but it was more entertaining because like Ray was going back and forth with some artists and getting into a little shouting match exchange at times. Atlanta had an eventful ending. I'm not going to talk about that. And then New York was really well attended.
Wait, why are you not going to talk about the thing that clearly is noteworthy, or what it was?
No, Atlanta, you can't talk about it. It's like we would get shadow banned, all the things. We'll tell you after, but that can't go on the internet for real.
What happens in Atlanta stays in Atlanta. New York was probably the most well attended. It was dope. Mano even pulled up. I thought that was super cool. He had some positive things to say afterwards.
Yo, shout out to Mano. He's everywhere.
Atlanta?
What's that?
I'm surprised New York beat Atlanta, because it was like packed in Atlanta.
Yeah, it was. Well, Atlanta we had a smaller room. We had to stop selling tickets at a certain point. So we probably could have got a lot more people in if we had a bigger room. I was originally told that room held 200 people. And then when they sent me the video and I looked at it, I was like, yeah, that's not going to hold 200. So we stopped selling tickets at like 120. And then New York just kind of came through at the last minute, a last little marketing blitz, and it got a lot of people in the door. But yeah, we'll continue it in 2025. We'll probably hit a West Coast run early because I'm not going to any of the cold cities in January. I'm not going to Chicago. I'm not going to Minneapolis. All those cold cities. Going to have to wait till the spring.
Madison.
spring or the summer. Yeah, Madison. I'm a Cali kid, so we're not doing the cold.
I think going to Wisconsin would be super dope because I feel like a lot of the B and C markets don't get stuff like this. So I feel like folks would really pull up.
Yeah. It would have to be Milwaukee, maybe. But ironically, all three of us have hoodies, and only one of us actually need it for survival.
Yo, I need it for survival. Dave does also, because I don't do colder temperatures. We're all kind of in the same color palette too, but
it is not. I forget because I did go to Atlanta that one time after you had the snow that shut down all the infrastructure. And what is crazy to me is that just America's too big. There's so much variation. Because what's regular for us, like 5 feet of snow, they expect you to be at work early, no school closures, nothing. They don't even put salt on the damn street. But in Atlanta, or I think even more tragically, what happened in Texas when there was just a little bit of ice on the ground, everything shut down. People were dying. There were accidents. It was awful. So, Dame's got to stop playing with that weather machine.
But yeah, so it was good. Erinn, feel free to share your candid opinion on the event.
I thought it was dope. I really enjoyed it because it's like you're getting the best of all worlds. It's like funny and fun.
Yeah.
But there's so many moments where there's these like zingers that you're like, whoa, like I think you and Ray have a really unique chemistry because Ray is just unhinged. Like he's like the quintessential Atlanta music exec, but it's unhinged, but he has so much wisdom and so much insight. And you're just cooling as he's doing wild shit. And then you'll just say something to bring the whole room together. And everybody's like, damn. Yeah. So it's just like the balance is really cool. Nyla was really tired at the Atlanta stop and the setup was weird. So I didn't really get to experience her dynamic with y'all because she had to be back at the DJ booth. But I'm speaking on a panel with her at the end of this week. So hopefully I'll get a feel for her. But I liked the vibe of it because a lot of times you go to music stuff and they're not really sharing good information, or you'll get a lot of good information, but it's super boring, or it's like a has-been music exec trying to like sell you on something. And it was none of that. Like all of y'all are still currently working in the music industry. It was all super relevant to me, even as somebody who's not even fully an exec in the industry or really in it. I was just like, there were things that I thought about. There were things I'd never heard. Even people that y'all brought up on stage and communicated with, sourcing information from the room. Just really, that was just so dope. Like just y'all would say, oh, this is this person's problem. What would you do about it? And then y'all gave people space to speak. And there was so much brilliance in the room. So you saw how it brought together camaraderie. People stayed like over an hour and a half after just to connect and talk with each other. Y'all were gone and people were still there mingling. So for me, my experience was a 15 out of 10. It was a great thing. I thought it was dope. And I think people are going to get a lot of value from it when they come to the upcoming dates.
Dope. Nah, I really appreciate you pulling up. I think each event kind of takes a life of its own and just kind of goes and that's what's fun about it for me. We usually have Nyla on stage, but because of the way the room was set up, Nyla was in the back for Atlanta. But she was tired that day. We had just flown in hella early. The hotel wouldn't let us check into the room. So she was sleeping in the lobby. I was staying up because I didn't want anybody to come by and be like, hey, you guys can't sleep down here. And then she didn't even check into the room. She just went straight to the venue. I eventually got into the room, showered up and went, but she was tired. And even after the New York show, she flew to Detroit to do something with Charlemagne, and Kamala Harris. And she's speaking with you, on Friday. So yeah, she's moving and shaking and she's DJing tonight. So Nala gets it in. But no, shout out to everybody that came out. Let's jump into the episode. I had about 3 different, I just want to quickly Warren, we don't even need to talk about it. I just want to let people know, if you don't know already, there are a lot of content creators presenting as educators, and they're giving you information that is not helpful. So be careful who you follow. I would say if the person that is speaking doesn't have some very current experience in the music industry, and the core of their business is what they're selling you, or some kind of class, some kind of course, the music industry changes so fast. Like, as soon as I'm not connected to it, like, I don't feel like I'll be able to be in the education space. Like, if I wasn't here at Too Lost, if I wasn't thinking about starting a label with some friends of mine, I'll tell you guys about that. This was a new development. If I wasn't working with Big Job, because a lot of the stuff in the YouTube space is very similar, if not the exact same, to what music artists need to do, that I'm tapping out as soon as I'm not close to it. But I feel like a lot of content creators use their old experience and try to squeeze a little bit of juice out of it by becoming now a quote unquote educator, but they're really just content creators.
Let me interject, Dave, because when you're talking about the Ray Daniels tour, I'm thinking how rare it is to have people who are on tour and who are accessible and who are creating content as they're balancing it with a current involvement in or a career of the music business. Because realistically, like I make one, we do the podcast and then I make one video a week. And they're becoming shorter, mostly because I don't want Weaver on my ass again, but they're becoming shorter, and it's hard for me to do what I need to do musically, and do the education stuff, because each of those are full-time jobs. And I think, wow, if you're lucky enough to see the rare, because people like you and Ray Daniels don't often tour at all. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Other people who have all the time in the world to create content about the music business, there's no way they have a full-time career in the music business. Maybe they did. And it worries me too, because especially in more formal education, where like I'll get contacted by someone saying, I'm at such and such a program getting such and such a degree in the music business, and my professor said this. And I'm like, wow, your professor's a fucking moron. Why would they say that? How are they getting paid a salary to teach you that bullshit? So it's not light what you're saying, Dame.
Yeah. Ray manages the person that got the Grammy for Songwriter of the Year currently this year. And I think sometimes that's why I like the balance between him and I, because like the space that he's speaking from is so far, a lot of times, from the people that are hearing the information. So sometimes I have to like give a more kind of independent view on even what he's talking about, because he's very experienced, but it's more so like big shit, like big artists. I don't want to name drop, but like he's working on big records right now with some of the biggest artists in the world. So sometimes I have to provide a little bit more information that's closer to the experience of the people that are watching, but it's still factual. Like, it's still real. And that's the world that he lives in. So,
well, Erinn Thomas, I mean, look him up.
Massive.
Yeah, it's Tehran, but yeah.
Oh, my bad. Tehran Thomas.
It's all good.
I have one of those names too. My bad.
But yeah, so just be careful out there. There's a lot of, I'm not going to sit here and call out names. I was going to play a video from an example of this, but I think you should be able to, if you learn the business, you'll be able to identify and differentiate, content creator versus like actual educator. And somebody that
you're getting a bunch of pieces of content a week with their face on it that's not old content.
Yeah.
Chances are they're a content creator. And this clip may get around to some of them because y'all gonna send it, and that's fine. If they're upset about this, chances are they're a content creator, because nobody who's actually I would, and content creator could be just podcaster. There's a couple people that I can think of right now that we rock with. You know what I'm saying? And their offering is their full-time gig, right? But they have never positioned themselves as industry experts. And I want to avoid saying their names because I don't want this to get weird, because we really support them. But they're an exception because they're positioning themselves as the curious thinker as well. And they want to ask questions, the same questions that you would have. They are one of the few exceptions. If you see talking head people where it's just them most of the time, or they're interviewing shocking people or really relevant people consistently, and then talking about pop culture, and then dropping a video 24, 12, 8 hours after something happens, you're a content creator. I can't bother to be up to date on half this shit that's happening right now. And I don't do nearly as much shit as Damon Payne. I couldn't be bothered. I'm trying to get into the content game from a more place of my version of integrity. But just know, if you're getting a lot of videos from somebody, that's their game. And shout out to the game, but I wouldn't be getting my information from somebody who sits and waits for the rumor mill to pop off and then positions themselves as an expert. It's just like a TikTok dance video when a new song comes out and then they dance. You're a great dancer, so you dance, but this is their version of dancing. They have nothing for you except for lies and platitudes to stand on for you to feel shocked and to watch their content.
Yeah. And we're content creators too, but I feel like I'm an educator first, and I got to get better at the content creation.
Oh, we're terrible content creators. I'll admit that for myself. Yeah. Even when I get criticism from the content creation space in the music producer community, I'm like, all right, fuck you. But at the same time, you're right.
Yeah.
Also, I'm all fucked up right now. I was reading Teron Thomas credits, and I got a flashback to, he wrote a replay for Ayaz back when Steve LaBelle was managing him, and I got a flashback to Steve LaBelle. I DJ'd for Ayaz last minute. They were like, we need a DJ, you over there. I was like, cool, I could DJ Steve LaBelle, another legend, Terrifying Man, if he's standing right behind you saying, all right, the cue's coming up right now. When I do this, when I snap twice, that means spin the record back.
When I snap once, twice?
No, it wasn't like that. I'm being dramatic. But
I'm like, that's actually insane.
No, it was him just kind of like softly, like we're in a loud theater space. There are like 1,000 people in there, and I don't know. You know, I know Ayaz records, but I've never DJ'd for him. So I'm like, can I actually do this without, you know, Steve LaBelle physically throwing me off the stage? And yeah, I did, and I was like, cool, man. I survived. It was a fun show.
I remember being on a panel with Steve, and I think he's not a big fan of me because he said something, and then like what I said after it, like contradicted what he said. I can't remember exactly what it was. But anyway, I didn't expect that segment to go as long. So I want you guys to go into your topics. And then if we have time, you know, we'll circle back to another one of my topics.
My topic is about Ari Lennox. So I'll read what she posted and then we can go from there. Essentially, Ari Lennox is getting off of the internet because it's weighing her down. And I really respect what she has to say about this, but I'm just going to read it first so I don't give my opinion before you guys get to hear it. This is very interesting because now she's posted a lot since. But she said she would. She said she would post because she had a new song coming out. So her post says, "Hey love, I'm working on a plan to transition off of social media for good. I don't believe I'll ever mature and be happy as long as I have it. So my last day of socials will be December 18th. my 2-year sobriety anniversary. Shout out to her for being sober for 2 years. I will be deleting my Facebook, IG, and TikTok permanently. The fear of losing brand deals, music sales, ninjas and betches will no longer keep me here. Will no longer keep me here. Got it. I have a very toxic and codependent relationship with these apps. My happiness is worth more to me than using this platform to promote. I truly believe I can get creative with marketing elsewhere. I'm so exhausted with my addiction to the internet and gossip and attention and validation and yearning to be in control and oversharing. I just want to be free and complete. I would like to offer other spaces where you can find me, and that's youtube.com /Ari Lennox and arilennox.com. And on the singing stage or outside. I ain't going front. This has been cute. It hasn't. I love y'all so much. Please subscribe to my mailing list on my website to remain up to date on my 2025 album and tour, or don't. My single Smoke drops 10/18 emojis. Also, my bad if my drama causes any distraction or insensitivity, as I'm aware of the constant horror going on in the world. I just need to give my sweeties a heads up. I'll be good, and I'm excited for this journey. I'm an extreme person. It will forever be all or nothing for me. Ari/Courtney. So I read the whole thing because I feel like she hits on multiple points that matter to this overall conversation. So my first thoughts on this, it's extreme. She says that at the very end, because a lot of people have commented, you could get off, but your team could run the page, whatever. As somebody who has dealt with a lot of artists, but people outside of the art world who have addictive personalities, I understand the all or nothing type of experience. I'm that way when it comes to enjoying something or caring about things. Either I absolutely care or I don't at all, which is why I'm not like a gossipy person or involved in like internet shit, because I don't care. And I really mean that. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't care to look into it. If you tell me about it, there will be a blank stare on my face. And if you ask me for an opinion, I'll be like, I don't have one, because I really don't. So I understand all or nothing. I also really applaud anybody who fights to get into a place that they need to be in the midst of people and everything around them telling them that it doesn't make sense. That's also a move that I would make. I think there are a lot of things, even currently, that I'm doing that people told me a year ago that make no sense. My whole career has made no sense. And even the way that I'm choosing to position myself in the world doesn't make sense. And I applaud anybody who has the courage to do that and the wherewithal to say, I'm the type of person to do that and to try. And then my third point before I get to y'all is, as a Black woman in this world, internet trolls, I actually don't give a fuck what y'all have to say about this too, because y'all don't live inside of my world and my body, and y'all don't see what I have to deal with in the real world. I can't imagine for Ari Lennox. Like, over the last 10 days, I've been on the verge of a crash out myself. The world doesn't make sense like I want it to make sense to me. I feel perpetually undervalued. I feel extremely frustrated, and consistently trying to negotiate my worth and my value in this world is exhausting to me in a way that I can't explain. And as somebody as chronically online as her, because she is very much chronically online, I can imagine her need to go to the extreme for her sanity. I've heard that from interviews before that the internet has made her drink more, which is one of her big vices, which is why she got into being sober and exercising. And for a stint, she got off the internet and had her team run her page. So for her to now be back on the internet almost 2 years into her sobriety journey and still say, this triggers me, even though I'm in a way healthier state. It could be her curiosity. It could be her excitement. It could just be the way that she decides to get entertainment. But as somebody who's chronically online, but also perpetually under attack, I think about the way that people talked about her and treated her on the Rod Wave tour. I can't imagine her saying, for y'all's sake, as somebody who's done my big one, to make it full time in the music industry, to establish myself in a reputable career, I can't see myself staying on the internet just because y'all deem it valuable when I find myself more valuable than anything that I have to offer on the internet. So as much as I'm saying it's tough that she has to feel this way, I don't follow her, so it's not a loss to me. I don't really know what she does on the internet, but as somebody who listens to Ari Lennox regularly and runs up her streams regularly and has seen her in concert live, it doesn't bother me as a fan of her, because I'm like, do what you got to do. When the songs come out, I'm still going to be notified because I get notifications on Spotify. You know what I'm saying? So I say shout out to her. I think my position is probably going to be different than most people, especially looking at the comments. But I also am not somebody who uses the internet as frequently and as relevant or regularly as the vast majority of people. And I also think that I love the idea of her getting very creative to promote her stuff. I love what in real life experiences could look like for her if she actually does this. I love the option of her to really think outside the box and bring new marketers on her team. And I'm hoping that that goes really well for her. I will give one caveat and then I'm finished. This is a luxury that's afforded to her by the fact that she has succeeded and has been on the internet for a very long time. I think if somebody else were to go this route, they would have to think very long and hard. They would also have to have a pre-built community that was ready to support them. And I don't know that this is something that everybody else can do, but shout out to Ari Lennox for being able to do it and taking the opportunity to embrace herself more than internet culture and more than what the populace would suggest is necessary for her to do to have a successful business.
I think there are ways to carve out spaces in the internet culture that are more private and intimate with a core group of fans and supporters, and then very gradually grow it. But it's a huge risk. And she even acknowledges that a person at her level in the music business already is going to lose money. You know, the fact that, you know, reach is everything now. Reach is everything. They will pay you for that reach. And realistically, even record labels, they're paying you for your reach, or at least your reach potential. And they're monetizing that reach because everything's internet. So it would be terrifying. And that just lends credence to her statement of how devastating the internet can be to a person. And I don't know if she meant it in jest or she's being self-deprecating or this is really how she feels, but she said, I'm not mature enough to I don't think it's a matter of being mature. I think it's a matter of being mature, knowing that you got to get the hell out of that space. So what she articulated is an incredibly mature perspective because she's not blaming the internet. She's looking inward. I'm blaming the internet. I had a interesting week. You know, I don't want to use words like tragic, et cetera, based on what's going on in the world, but like this should happen to me. A bunch of people I knew died, including my own aunt who I've known my whole life. And I post about it, you know, and Ari's talking about that in her tweet where she said oversharing. For me, it's not even oversharing. It's that somebody that comments something like this and then deletes their comment like a coward has no sense of consequence. And so the internet, imagine that times 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. Human
Especially
beings
when you're
aren't
like sensitive and like going through something. It's just like, it's almost like people use that as an opportunity to cut through the noise because they know there will be less engagement with it from a business perspective. So they're like, oh, they'll probably really notice this. That's what happened to me because I was like, yo, I need advice because I'm tripping this week. And I don't know why I asked the internet because all of my mentors I have to schedule time with because everybody's busy. Shout out to them. So I had stuff scheduled. Somebody dead ass in my comments saying I need advice goes and says, can you be in my music video? I'm just like, That shit is what makes me want to crash out. I'm like, everybody wants something from me and I want somebody to give something to me. You're talking about all the death that you're currently experiencing and somebody tells you to change your fucking name? Folks are like insane. And then
I think that what made it even worse was that, yeah, he was saying, change my name because then people around me will stop dying or something. So it's one of those things, you know, and I'm calm now. I wasn't when it happened. And that's not healthy because you get I don't know what brain chemicals make you just want to smack the shit out of someone, shoot their car up, shoot their house up when some shit like that goes down on the internet. And you're like, that's not me. I'm not going to prison for a tweet. It's not healthy, and I understand where she's coming from. I'm literally tweeting about being sad that my aunt died and getting that type of negativity back. Imagine me as a singer who's not just a woman, but a Black woman on display, being objectified, being criticized, being picked apart by a far greater audience. Yeah, get off. I applaud her for that. I truly hope that she can bring her fans to a more productive and healthier space, whether it's on or off the internet. Either way, I support that. She should drop the song that we produced. But more than anything, I support that.
So I don't think this is risky at all. And I don't think she's going to lose money. Like Erinn mentioned, she has the community. She has a large community. She's got 2 million followers on Instagram. This gives her an opportunity to really engage with that community and provide a premium experience. She said that she still wants people to subscribe to her newsletter. I went to her site. I wish that her newsletter was more front and center so that more people would go to her site and she'd get more subscribers quickly. The fact that she makes quality music that people really, really want. It's in high demand. But I think that community will take the things that she still has on YouTube and her website and share it on social media. So she'll still have a presence. And the fact that she's still on YouTube is one of the biggest platforms out there. And in terms of TV viewing, I think I saw this metric because of the work that I'm doing with Ja, is like on TV, YouTube now has 10% of the viewing audience. So 10% of things that are watched on TV are on YouTube. So it's still a huge platform. But one of the other reasons why I think this is really going to work, because he's not the first person to do this, but she stepped out in front of it, because I think we're going to see a lot of this. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of this. And it's better to be a first mover than to just be like, oh, you just did it because that other artist did it and found success. There's going to be a lot of ways for her to monetize her community, grow her community because of the things that she already has in place. So I actually think this is a smart move for her health, but financially as well. I think she can make a lot of money given the community, given the quality of music. I think this is a great move. But I don't want people looking at this being like, oh, that's why I need to jump off the internet. You're not Ari Lennox. Again, it's another case of you're not Ari Lennox. It's like it's another case of you're not 50 Cent and all the other examples that you guys like to cling to because you're looking for opportunities to not work, right? Like you're looking for reasons to tap out and not go hard at this. You're not Ari Lennox, but I personally think this is going to work out great for her.
Well, let me ask you this, Dane, because if you are an Ari Lennox, and I'm thinking about all the celebrities out there, and we have no idea how they feel about this behind closed doors, but all the celebrities out there who seem to have a healthy relationship with social media, is it because they're just disconnecting from it? Is it because, you get to a certain level and you have a team running your social media, so you don't even necessarily have to see the talk about you? But, obviously that's a luxury. For the rest of us, it's still an ugly space. So what do we do when we're feeling like, because a lot of us, I run a beat store. So that's e-commerce. I got to be on the internet. I maybe don't necessarily need to be on the internet the way I'm on the internet. Certainly don't necessarily need to be reading replies to everything. I could just completely go radio silent on that front.
Yeah.
I think, that would hurt my business though.
I think it really just depends on, well, one, I encourage everybody to protect their health first. Like if you really think that being online is unhealthy and it's damaging mentally, emotionally, then you got to take a step back. But you can carve out spaces, whether it's private communities, whether it's making your page private. I know we typically say, hey, don't make your page private. But if you're really having problems with people on the internet, it's really impacting. You have to make those decisions to protect your peace. But I ultimately think that it's about, setting that aside, like it's about your brand, your messaging, and then it might make sense to have a more like private community for what you're trying to do. Most artists are trying to be as big as possible, trying to get as much exposure as possible. So that doesn't make sense for them. And having a private page is kind of stupid. But I really think it's kind of a case by case basis, depending on how you want to move and what you need.
I actually I didn't want to take up too much space, but Dame, I'm really in agreement with you. I think that you heard it here first because I've called trends and we can go back. I actually believe the new trend, especially like mid 25, late 25, is going to be big brands investing in things that aren't digital, right? And I've been betting on this for a very long time. I didn't know when it was exactly going to take shape. Obviously, I own an IRL company in Austin, but I've been doing this, for years. And then even I have a course on Zoo Labs. It's like, you shouldn't tour. I think you need to do essentially a bespoke in real life event, and build a whole world around that. And then maybe do just a handful of these bespoke events in your top markets, max out the dollars, lower the amount of access to you, and just really hone in on your community. It's less about exclusivity and more about focus, but it creates exclusiveness, right? And so I think big brands are going to start investing in that because you can see more of a real world return on your investment. That's what I've been pitching a lot of the brands that I'm talking to on. That's what a lot of them have given me yeses on, but then nobody's cut the check, which is what's making me want to crash out a little bit as well. Cause I'm like, y'all see what I'm saying, but they're waiting for somebody. So shout out to Ari Lennox because it may be making my job a little bit easier. Just being able to cite her as an example. There hasn't been necessarily a huge success story aside from people who are developing their online communities in a tangible way. Like Fred again is doing a really good job of things like this. And so I feel like Ari's team, which is a note that I was also going to make, Dame, I think they're not necessarily prepared for this in the way that they should be, which is why her website wasn't like, it makes me feel good because you can tell it's authentic. It's not like she's trying to position herself in the market. And like, as soon as she said this, you go to her website and it's like optimized for the new world. So I think she's really working through this as a person. I hope that her team hires somebody who specializes in this, not just them theorizing that they understand the landscape. They really have to have an independent approach. And I don't mean independent as in independent 10 years ago. You need somebody on your team, hey, hire me, hire Dane. Who knows? You need somebody on your team, one that thinks like this, but two, that has success in the space and can optimize her campaigns towards her actual bent as a human being. Like, I think it would be really cool for her to kind of go the No Name route. Like, No Name has a bookstore in Chicago because No Name doesn't fuck with the internet. No Name doesn't fuck with most things. No Name is an artist that I absolutely adore. And I listen to her music super regularly. She's not as big as Ari, but I feel like has a very, very similar cult following. Part of Ari's cult following is the hot girls, but the other part is the ones like me who are like, I'd rather be in nature. I'm still going to be on the internet because I'm a millennial. I'm still going to be kikiing on TikTok, but the likelihood of me posting is way lower. You know what I'm saying? And I would like to go for a walk and drink coffee. So I think that if you have somebody who understands that world, you have someone who understands those people, there's a very high dollar spend that people like me will put up to have a good experience, an elevated experience. I won't necessarily say luxury. I love luxury, but I don't want what comes with the luxury, the highfalutanness and like the decorum that's expected. I want something that's very elevated, that costs me something that everybody can't have access to, but I'm going to be there. I'm going to be locked in and I'm going to love it. So I think this is like such a beautiful place for Ari to be positioned in the market. I'm hoping her team gets it right because she could be a case study in the future of music. And I believe that this is coming regardless. And I would love for it to be led in thought and example and money by a Black artist. Obviously, most things in the industry are led by Black artists and Black people, but we don't get the credit for it. And so I would hope that this leads to something that she gets the advantage of, because I could see people like Chappell Roan falling in line with this. I could even see Fred again falling in line with this because he's already moving in that direction. I think that this is going to be like the mainstream offshoot line, like not necessarily the biggest pop stars like Olivia Rodrigo, but I think all of the really popular people who don't want to play the popular games are going to go this route.
Yeah, I really hope though that, because major labels, I'm looking at how this works on her website. And the newsletter is kind of to the side. Like, if she's still going to continue to be signed and this is ran by the major label, like the major label really needs to understand kind of how to do this, because right now this isn't how you should do it. There's a few things wrong with how it's set up, because you enter your email, you choose your country, and then you have to select subscribe to emails from, and there's a checkbox for Ari Lennox or Interscope Records. Who the fuck wants an email from Interscope Records? Like, who gives a shit about it?
They really got to think it through.
Yeah, they got to think this has to be an Ari Lennox experience. Like, get Interscope and all that other bullshit off the website, even if that's who's powering it. I would love to know, like, going forward, is she going to stay in her, or when she gets out of her deal and when this is like completely independent? Cause Interscope's not going to completely botch this, but she's not going to be able to maximize the potential of these experience, because they don't typically have people on the inside that understand this, evidenced by how it's currently set up. Nobody wants an email from Interscope Records. Take that shit off the website.
I think that she doesn't strike me as somebody who wants to be indie. Do you know what I'm saying? Especially with like her story arc. And I don't blame her, because it's like, she probably just want to chill, which is half the reason she getting off the internet. Like, yo, I'm trying to chill. It was probably a huge battle letting her team know. I think they just need to hire. They do it anyways. They just need, they do it to shop records and stuff. I think they just need to hire someone or some people to do this for 18 months. Let's try some stuff. Let's experiment. Like, even her mailing list, it should immediately be incentivized. Maybe there's a demo for the new song that's dropping. Maybe it's the actual new song that's dropping and they don't say a word about it. But if you go, because it's probably maybe, if that, 100 people have gone to subscribe to her mailing list. I am a huge fan of Ari Lennox and I listen to her very regularly. I didn't go subscribe because I know what it is. I know there's not going to be any I didn't even look at the website because, like you said, I already know it's not like when Smino was like, I'm sick of this shit. I'm dropping, he had his Sme player or Sminoverse player, whatever. And he put like 100 tracks on his website and you could just play it straight. This is like right before Even started dropping stuff. I think it was like 2019, 2020. I knew it wasn't going to be independent like that, but I think if somebody can, because this is like you said, she can have an online presence anyways. Imagine if she would have had the song embedded in the newsletter when you subscribe and it's an immediate download. That word would have spread like wildfire. And then maybe after 10,000 people, join the mailing list, something else came. Maybe it was like you got a new graphic or something, you know what I'm saying? And it's like for every 10,000 people, it changes. So now people are like, damn, anytime she does something on her website, I gotta be there. Do you know what I'm saying? I think you have to gamify and incentivize people to step away from what they've already experienced or know to be true. That's why people like TikTok. People moved over to TikTok because there was something new and unique about TikTok, and it fed something that wasn't already being fed from the other socials. So shout out to Ari's thought process and her decision for herself. I'm hoping that her team is prepared and willing and not just resistant because it's not easy. My thought process is there's a lot of resistance there, and they may be trying to scramble, or the most creative people that are on her team are probably busy doing other things. And I'm just hoping that they get this right, because she's a gem and a jewel and will go down in music history as somebody who's influenced sounds for generations. And I just hope that they just get this right, because she's young. She's got a mind about her. She's such an interesting human being. And I think that there's so much that they can do with her if they do it right.
And that's how you know it's authentic, because there was no rollout. This was a post.
It still could have been like she could have taken more advantage of the moment. But ultimately, that's why I really don't think this is a risk, and it's actually probably the smartest move for her personality and how she wants to move forward. I just hope that her team understands the potential here, like Erinn said, and can set the pieces up the right way to capitalize on it and to allow her to lead a healthy lifestyle.
I have something that I want to run by the two of you based on your experience. I saw a post, and it's on Threads. Threads is starting to become a really strange space, and I don't know what's real, what's not, because people will post dumb shit just to get a reaction because it works. But I saw this. I think because my colleague Sage Francis, who's a legendary independent hip hop artist, one of my favorite rappers of all time, honestly, replied to it. And this is a producer who asked the question, how much do you charge to produce someone's music? I charge $5,000, but I've never produced anyone. Interesting. Someone asked me to produce them yesterday. I told him $5,000, and the rapper seemed shocked. My comment was, it doesn't seem like you care about making money, so you're doing the right thing. I don't mean that as a dig. I just mean I genuinely think, well, I'll explain what I think, but Sage Francis chimed in. And Sage Francis has been a career rapper since I was in high school. You know what I mean? This guy has been doing it. He said, to be fair, that's a shocking number. And, he points out why do you think, given that you've never produced anyone, you can start at that high of a price tag. On the one hand, people were saying this dude's not going to make any money, because I shared this and looked at some of the comments that I received. Some people were saying, well, clearly that's a fuck you price. That's what I was getting at. I think that was a fuck you price. And he was just kind of sharing a situation. It's almost like Reddit, am I the asshole? And, I don't think you're an asshole for it, but I think you gave him the fuck you price, because if you cared about making money, I think this guy probably has a day job and he's making money doing something else. So that's all I meant. I don't think he cares about making money off of this interaction. Because if he did, then he's doing it wrong, but it didn't feel that way. On the other side of the spectrum, though, people were saying this producer, this is a narrative that producers will say, the producer doesn't work for you, the producer works for himself, or, his price is his price. All right, I think all sides are right, but based on the outcome, right? In my experience, I'll say these three things, or these two things. Number one, producers do work for themselves, but our job is to produce. So if an artist contacts us to produce a song, we are working for them in a business sense and then working with them in a creative sense. So I don't feel this sense of independence, this hyper independence, if you're paying me. I'm going to do what I can do to make sure that you get what you're paying for. If you pay me, I'm on contract with you. And number two, if a business isn't flexible in the right ways, it's going to break, just like a brittle tree in a windstorm. Obviously, if you're Timbaland, you're not selling a beat for 5,000 or for 500, let alone 5,000. But if your budget is 500, you don't even have access to Timbaland. You know what I mean? So if you're an artist who has access to me, like I'm talking about myself here, I've gotten 30,000 for a beat before. That was from a major label. That's from a multi-billion-dollar entity, multi-billion-dollar corporate entity. If my friend from high school, who's an aspiring artist who lives in an apartment down the street from me, asked me for a beat, I could tell him I need 10,000 for a beat. Or you know what? I've gotten 30K before. I need 30K from you. Knowing damn well he makes 30K a year. Why would I do that? Unless I'm financially free, I'm going to lose my livelihood with that attitude and with that revenue model. I have no problem getting $500 for a beat from an unsigned artist. Even if I spend a full 8-hour day working with that artist, break that down. That's $60 an hour, over $60 an hour. That's a 6-figure income. You know what I mean? So why would I act like a superstar around these people? One of the comments that I received said 5K is nothing for those who take their craft seriously. And I was like, you can take your craft seriously, but if you don't have the income, it's not even possible. So I don't understand this sentiment. It says, nowadays, these artists become millionaires off one song going viral. So why shouldn't the producer at least get a few thousand up front and publishing on the back end? Producers, stop selling yourself short, especially if you've invested thousands, blah, blah, blah. Look, I'm a producer advocate. I want producers to win. I don't think this is the attitude that is going to allow us to win. So my questions to you is, first, if you just want to react, I know Erinn is experiencing some and sending some visible cues that she has something to say.
I just think headassery is at an all-time high. And I don't know why, because the summer is just ending. So people have the ability to be outside. I feel like typically you see peak headassery after everybody's been cooped up in the cold for a really long time, just after the holidays where they've seen their family and they really want to fucking crash out. And then they're broke because they made some shifty moves after seeing their family, just to like self-medicate. So typically this is like January, February activity when you forget what the sun looks like. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't understand the rationale because you've already put that's what it is. There is no rationale. I'm trying to put my logical mind on, it just doesn't make sense because they've already fronted themselves out and said, I've never done this, but I charge a premium. And it doesn't make sense because it's like what you're charging for, especially that at that rate, would never happen virtually. So if you're saying 5K, are you also going to rent the studio? Are you going to come to the person? And then it's just like, what resume builder do you have? Like, there's just so many flaws in this logic, especially if you're going back and forth with somebody. But I think for me, for a split second, I was trying to be logical, but I just realized that's just like also a waste of my time. So I'm going to back up again. It just made me mad because it's like, you're over here propagating misinformation, but I get it. It's like the only people who would accept misinformation would be somebody who's as head ass as you. So I'm just going to back up.
So then let me ask both of you this. So 2 scenarios, and I want to know how producers should approach their business, because a lot of producers are being miseducated. They're being pulled in opposite directions. Rappers saying, work for free. Maybe I'll give you Spotify royalties, which don't exist for them. And then on the other hand, you have the producer who's like, 5K, that's nothing. You see someone working at Wendy's, they should pay at least 10K for a beat. So 2 scenarios. Dame, you're still running a record label, and maybe you're gonna start running a record label soon, based on what you said earlier. An artist turns in their album, there's a beat by a new producer on it. That producer has never been paid for a beat ever. It's a great song, you want it to go on an album. What happens next, and what do you expect the producer to do?
I mean, typically it's negotiated up front, like what we pay for beats. I think for Funk Volume, when we first started, it was like, well, Hop produced almost all of his stuff. But when we started working with Dizzy, who didn't produce his stuff, I think we paid like $500. I don't think we ever paid over like $1,500 for a beat. It was always like $500 to $1,500. And then you get obviously your publishing and royalties. That was at that time. I think, over time, like fair changes over time. Like even the artist deals that we did were super fair for the moment. If it was the same time today, it'd probably have to be even more in the artist's favor. Right. And I think producers, same way. I think producers, we're just kind of coming out of the era where like producers just get like 3%, royalty rate. Right. I think that changes over time, too. I think, producers should get more than 3% of a record. But in any situation, I think that you should never, like after the fact, you should always have an idea, even if it's not in writing, of like what we're working for here. Right. Like even when I worked with you before, Payne, I told you like this is what the structure is going to be. I don't want you doing hella work and then we get to negotiating and then we're not on the same page on like what, at least in some type of range of where this is going to shake out in terms of compensation for the producers. Like, so the communication just has to be on point. I think this cat was like it doesn't sound like he wants to produce other people. That's how I read it. I just read it like, because sometimes I think even Hop said that before. It's like, okay, now because a lot of artists don't like doing like features, even though they get paid a lot of money for them. At some point, it's just like, all right, tell him my feature price is $100,000, just so that he doesn't have to do it. That's how I received the initial message. So I didn't.
Yeah, the fuck you price. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't. I wouldn't even have commented or engaged because it was pretty clear to me that he just doesn't want to produce for other people, and that's fine. That's
the energy I got. Yeah. So, okay, second scenario then for both of you, you're both managing an artist, which you've both done and continue to do. They're paying for their own beats. They're not signed to a label. Everything's out of pocket. Maybe they're at the 250,000 streams a month level. If they want to drop a single with a brand new producer who has no experience selling beats, what are you doing on your end business-wise, and what do you expect from the producer business-wise?
You're saying paperwork? Or like
anything business-wise, like especially when you're interacting, because you got to reach out. You probably have to do some negotiating. How is the producer conducting themselves in an ideal situation?
In my experience, a lot of times working with new producers with my artists at that rate, the producer is just hyped that the artist wants to get a track from them. And then I'm like, yo, how much do you charge? And they're usually like, typically 50, or they'll be like, man, I really want $150. And I'll be like, okay, we're going to give you 400, or we'll give you 500. You know what I'm saying? Or sometimes it depends, because I had a signed artist at that rate, and we just kind of had a personal internal thing that we weren't going to pay. If it was a single and she was working with a new artist, we wouldn't pay less than 500. If it was just kind of like a drop track, we wouldn't pay less than 250 or 300, just from an integrity standpoint. Because it's like, you're not going to make royalties like you think you are, because this artist is signed. It's going to take a minute to recoup. You're making 2% on the record. You know what I'm saying? It's like nothing. Let's give you something. And then if it was going to be a single, typically she wouldn't rock with a new artist, or a new producer. But if she did, it was typically between 1,000 and 1,500. But if they're a brand new producer, same thing. She do between like 500 and 750 for the love. But I do have several other unsigned artists who were slightly bigger than that, who would just be like, I'm paying 250. My regular guys do 250, but they would also be breaking bread. They would be giving like a fourth of the record in points or whatever to the producer, and there's no label involved. So there's going to be a recoup. So I do know, like, it would typically be like, hey, what do you want? I ask that because I just want to see where they're at. Then I'd be like, okay, this is what we're going to give you, or this is what we have. Let me know your thoughts. And then we would talk about points or master royalties. We would talk about publishing. Again, with the independent guys, they actually a couple of them wouldn't even give the full 50%. Some of them would be like, I'll give you 40% because you're going to get X, Y, and Z. I would like the extra 10%. I didn't necessarily agree with that, but like, this is why I don't work with artists anymore. And then, you do the publishing, sound exchange, LOD, paperwork for all the split sheet. And then, just typically either an email or on the split sheet, I would add, this is how much we're paying for the beat. I get all of their paperwork or their payment information. I email that to them because typically I'm texting them or talking to them on the phone. I email that over to them. They email it signed back. Then the money gets transferred and then the beat gets transferred. It's pretty like simple. I mean, I feel like I talked for a long time, but pretty simple. It's just like negotiate the price, figure out the splits, figure out the publishing, get an LOD for sound exchange. And then pretty much that's it, I think.
Can you recall a situation where a producer messed up the negotiations process by being what you would consider unprofessional?
For sure. But the annoying ass part is 9 times out of 10, the artist is still going to work with them. And I have to deal with the bullshit. But if they're really preposterous, yeah, all of us are like, we're out. But I've definitely, I've seen a lot of deals, or I've seen a deal that was almost blown by a producer. And I'm like, hey, big dog, pick a side. Either you can die on this, you can stand 10 toes down, and I have big respect it, but ain't nothing coming from this. Or they stand 10 toes down on that one, but they don't realize that the artist wanted way more tracks from them. So we let them have it on that one, but they missed out on like 3, 4, 5, 10 songs worth of bags. And then I also tell every other person, don't work with this person because they're going to fuck up the deal.
Yeah. And I got to run in a second, but my experience, thankfully, I let the artist kind of lead the communication. It's better that way with a lot of the producers. But I think Funk Volume got to a point where we were pretty well respected. So I didn't really have like too many issues with producers because producers wanted to work with us. And it was, I can't remember any like issues with any producers, thankfully. But I think it was because like what we came to be. And then also like the artist really helped in kind of managing a lot of the communication. And then, when paperwork needed to get executed, it kind of got elevated to me. So, thankfully a lot of the folks didn't really cause no drama.
Yeah. I mean, I think people I don't understand how people conceptualize interactions in their minds where they think I'm just going to walk into this situation and demand some money and I'm going to get it. Or I mean, because I think if you don't want to make money off of production, cool, just have whatever attitude you want. I think it's kind of crummy if you don't want to work with a rapper and they say how much you charge for beats and you say $80,000, bitch. That's not great. You're not really behaving consistently with what a good person should behave. But if you say, look, I'm just not working with artists right now, that's fair. You're not working with artists. Cool. But I've given the advice to producers all the time where you just need to break down what your financial goals are. If you want to make $50,000 a year, how much do you have to make per week or per month or per day? And then take that into account when you're pricing your beats. What's the hourly rate on $50,000 a year? Just start informing yourself with actual tangible numbers. And then you don't have to, because I think a lot of producers panic, like producers who want to make music, not the guy in the post. But to those of you, if you're watching this, you probably want to make money as a producer. Don't just pull numbers from the sky. You get real nervous when someone says, how much do you charge? We're like, oh shit, I don't know. It helps to have some sort of reference point. I'm not saying that has to be the final price. In your mind, your final price might be $300 and you offer that to Erinn and she says, you know what, I'll give you $400. Or your price might be $500, but then you negotiate down to $300 because you realize, well, hey, I'm making $300 for a beat that I spent 4 hours on based on my calculations of my financial goals, this is still in line with that. You know, if someone's like, oh, I'll give you $50 for this beat, like, yeah, for a lease, but I'm not giving you a custom exclusive beat for $50. That doesn't make sense based on my financial goals. Or if you're like me and you're selling your first beat, maybe $50 makes all the sense in the world, because I only got $25 for my first beat. I was a kid. I was living with my parents. I had no financial responsibilities. I didn't have a financial spreadsheet like I do now. So things change and your business evolves along with your life evolving. But if you're serious, I'd say ground it in actual tangible numbers, number one. And then number two, don't be a dick. It's very easy to not be a jerk. And it's also easy to hurt an opportunity by being a jerk. And it's easy for Dame to the vanishing act. So I think that's my cue to close this out. Yeah. Appreciate you tuning in. If you're not aware yet, I don't know why you wouldn't be, but sometimes people need a reminder. You can upload a bunch of your music to all the platforms, monetize them completely for free, as much music as you can get up in 3 months. Just go to tolost.com and use the code MEC when you sign up. And if you decide to not continue with the membership, once the 3 months are up, your music stays on the platforms. If you do decide to move forward with it, what did Dame say? It was like $2.99 a month. It's something very negligible. A lot of people are like, oh, it's the price of beer or the price of coffee. You can't get either of those things for $2.99. You can't get any of that for under $5. Unless you're like,
I drink black coffee.
I don't want to know.
It's still usually $4.
Yeah, and I don't know what kind of beer or coffee you're drinking at an establishment for under $5. But if you can figure, I don't know, maybe you have a really strong immune system. We appreciate you tuning in either way. Yeah, follow us. The links to our socials are below. Reach out. We do consultations. We just don't advertise them. So reach out. And we will catch you on the next episode. Peace.